Peace, peace. This your host, Selah Shalom. And this is the Cosmon Teachings in the words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible OAHSPE. And the topic of discussion today is called the primary education of the second resurrection, or heaven, after death. Here I will be explaining the labor of angels in the second resurrection, or heaven after death, the works that they do. See, what the Bible doesn't show you is that there's constant progression and resurrection in the spirit realm after you die. So you're not just going to go to one heaven and be there for the rest of your eternity. It doesn't work like that. See, and the Bible is going to have you stuck in that belief system. So you're going to be a subservient slave to a false God who's going to have you believing that his heavenly kingdom is the only heavenly kingdom. OAHSPE is giving you the broadness, showing you the fullness of these things, so you won't be caught in the snare at the end of the day. Now, the primary education of the second resurrection, or heaven. Book of Divinity, chapter 4, verse 1, it states, God said, "For the spirit of a faithist who hath completed his primary education, what then?" On which all the members spoke. After that the diva decreed it. Verse 2, he shall serve 200 years as an apprenticed Luiz. A Luiz are angels that are responsible for watching over mortal marriages and controlling the offspring of children to bring about righteous offspring. Now, he shall serve 200 years as an apprenticed Luiz. He shall become proficient in the knowledge of procreation of mortals, learning to prophesy what the offspring will be, according to the parentage, to become wise in discerning how the spirit of a living mortal governs the flesh, to good or evil, how the spirit of a mortal controlleth the sex, and ultimate size and health and strength of the offspring. So these are the things you will be beginning to learn in the second resurrection, prophesizing what the offspring of the children would be beforehand. Verse 3, to learn which the Luiz shall take him to thousands of mortals, and he shall make a record of what he hath under observation. And when such mortals have offspring born unto them, he shall make a record thereof, and he shall observe the character of the birth and the foundation of the child, together with what condition surrounded the mother of the child. And he shall follow that child till it hath grown up, and also married, and begotten a child, or children, and so on to the 6th generation. And this was the 28th divine law. Verse 4, the diva decreed it, after he hath served 200 years, he shall be examined by his lord, or his lord's deputy, and if proficient in prophesying to the 6th generation, which is 200 years, he shall be entered as an ashar, a guardian angel, on the list of 4 12s for every moon's change. But the 48 ashars, guardian angels, shall not be ashars, guardian angels, to more than 192 mortals, otherwise especially alluded by the Lord or the God of his domain. So for the first 200 years you will be learning how to become a guardian angel, observing mortals' birth, observing mortal marriages, and watching the offspring of the child as it grows, and as that child becomes an adult and have children, and following that process. And by obtaining this knowledge, you will become proficient and will be able to prophesy prior to the birth of the child, or particular children, or a nation of people. And this is how you will be able to tell beforehand if the people would rise or fall, based off these lessons of guardianship. Now, verse 5, for 4 generations of 133 years shall he serve as an ashar, guardian angel, and he shall learn to have dominion over his immortal protege night and day, not suffering them, however, to know his presence, to accomplish which he shall begin with his proteges in their first infancy, remaining with them while they sleep, talking to the spirit of the mortal, teaching and persuading. This was the 29th divine law. And this verse said something interesting. It said how the angels can be present without your knowing. So there's angels always around you. Verse 6, the diva decreed it, having served as ashar, guardian angel, the full term of ashar, he shall be entitled to examination by his lord or deputy. But herein beginneth a new examination, which is, that the examination pertaineth to his protege, as to what kind of fruit he hath sent to heaven, the grade of his Isaians, newborn spirit, being the standard. This was the 30th divine law. Verse 7, the diva decreed it, Having passed the examination as Ashar, guardian angel, he shall now be promoted as Asaph. Now, Asaphs are angels who receive the newborn spirits in heaven. Just as the guardian angels watch over mortals while alive, the Asaphs receives the newborn spirits of mortals who has recently passed on or died. Now, having passed the examination as Ashar, guardian angel, he shall now be promoted as Asaph, where he shall serve 66 years. Here again his examination shall be not of himself, but of the harvest of his department. This was the 31st divine law. Verse 8, the Diva decreed it. His examination being complete, he shall now receive emancipation of all preceding departments and decrees, and he shall have his choice in all places he hath passed, unless otherwise specially detailed by his Lord or God of his division. This was the 32nd divine law. Verse 9, the Diva decreed it. He shall now be entitled to enter the chapter of the primary soul. His first lesson shall be in colors and sounds, both of corpor, which is physical, and spirit. First beginning with gray of not more than 3 combinations. And when he hath mastered these, he shall have 4, then 5, then 10, then 100, and so on, until when any combination of colors is placed before him, he can instantly perceive every color, shade, tint, and the velocity of light and its force emanating. And he shall pursue this study until he can create in spirit the counterpart of anything in corpor, or in the material world, or create in corpor the counterpart of anything in spirit. And of sounds he shall proceed in the same way, first learning a combination of 3, so that when his teacher produces any 3 sounds together, he can hear them and determine the exact velocity of wave. Then he shall begin with 4 sounds, or notes, then 5, then 10, then 100, and even 1,000, the which, even though made in the same instant, he shall detect every one and the velocity and force of each. This was the 33rd divine law. So here you can see this divine law begins the chapter of the primary of soul. Now, verse 10, the Diva decreed it. He shall now begin the practice of combining and creating color by sounds and sounds by colors, both in corpor and in spirit. His teacher shall make explosions with light and explosions without light, and by his eyes and ears only shall he be able to determine with what elements the explosions were made. This was the 34th divine law. Verse 11, the Diva decreed it. He shall go far away from the explosions, and when the waves come to him, even though he heareth not the explosion, he shall be able to determine by the waves of what substance the explosion was made, and whether in light or in darkness, and if in light, what colors were manifested. This was the 35th divine law. So here is showing you the depths and the advancement and intelligence that these angels in the second resurrection are learning. These are the same lessons we will be learning when we enter these realms after this physical death. So you have angels out there in the second heaven that are able to hear explosions without the sound, and are able to read by just the wave what type of substance was used for the explosion and things of that nature. Now, verse 12, the Diva decreed it. He shall now receive instructions in the sounds of conversation. First, his teacher shall cause him to hear 2 people conversating at the same time, missing nothing that is said. Then 3, then 4, then 5, then 10, then 100, and then 1,000. But no greater number in this department. This was the 36th divine law. So in the 36th divine law, when you become master of that law, you will be able to hear up to 1,000 people conversating and will be able to understand them clearly. Verse 13, the Diva decreed it. He shall now analyze the waves of voices, wherein he cannot hear the sounds thereof. His teacher shall station him in a certain place and cause him to read the waves of light and sound that come to him, so that he knoweth not only the word spoken, but the kind of person speaking or singing. This was the 37th divine law. Verse 14, the Diva decreed it. His teacher shall now cause him to read the waves of light and sound emanating from 2 persons talking at the same time, when he cannot hear, and he shall understand not only the word spoken, but the kind of person speaking. Then he shall read the waves in the same way for 3 persons, then 4, then 8, then 100, and even 1,000. This was the 38th divine law. So here is showing you again the intelligence and the advancement of these angels in the second heaven, showing you that they can hear up to 1,000 people conversating and understand them completely. Now, verse 15, the Diva decreed it. Then he shall be taken to a distance from a battlefield where mortals are in deadly conflict, but he shall not be sufficiently near to hear the sounds. But when the waves come to him, he shall read them and know the number of the men in battle, the kind of weapons in use, and the cause of contention. This was the 39th divine law. And here this verse said something interesting. It said, they will know the number of men in battle. So just as America, when it sent its troops over to the east, when they say, all right, we're going to deploy 10,000 troops to the east, these angels have a knowledge of these things in the realm of where they're at by the waves coming up, rippling through the atmosphere. And they are able to determine by the waves from what we are saying down here on earth, and they could determine what's going on, showing you again the intelligence of these angels in the second heaven. Now, verse 16, the Diva decreed it. He shall now be promoted to be a messenger between lords and between lords and gods. This was the 40th divine law. Verse 17, the Diva decreed it. For 100 years he shall serve as messenger, and at the end of that time his lords and gods shall render his record and promote him to be marshal. And thereupon the emancipation of all the preceding decrees and departments shall be open to him, to choose whatsoever he will, except on such time and occasions as especially required by his Lord or God. This was the 41st divine law. Verse 18, the Diva decreed it. For 200 years he shall serve as marshal, and under as many as 40 lords and gods, and in as many as 20 heavenly kingdoms. This was the 42nd divine law. Verse 19, the Diva decreed it. He shall now be promoted Lord, and have dominion over a city or a nation of mortals, and over the spirits belonging to that city or nation. This was the 43rd divine law. So you can see that the 43rd divine law is when you become a lord. And to be titled as Lord, you would have to have the mastery of all the lessons you have passed through. Now, Book of Divinity, chapter 5, verse 1, it states, God propounded, if a man die and be not of faithist, what then? All the members spoke. Now this is going into a person or a nation of people who do not have faith in the Creator, but may have faith in their false God, like your Jesus, your Allah, your Buddha, or whatever deities you may have created. You may call on Osiris as your creator, or Amun. We don't look at Jehovah as a deity. We look at him as the omnipotent creator, the incomprehensible, no beginning, no end, as described in OAHSPE. So I'm not going to classify Jehovah in that category, although many will, because they don't have the understanding of what I'm talking about. They have the understanding of Jehovah coming from the false God's perspective through the wars against Jehovah in the past ages. But I covered those things already for my followers. But you newcomers, y'all probably don't know what's going on. But for the record, those who do not accept the Creator and accept their false gods as creators, these are the lessons for them. They would only obtain to the second resurrection after death. They will not rise higher than the second heaven. That's their limitation for those who do not acknowledge the Creator. Now, verse 1 again. God propounded, if a man die and be not of faithist, what then? All the members spoke, and then, verse 2, the Diva decreed it. Inasmuch as he accepts not the faithist law, while mortal, he is unsuitable to the highest exalted place of the light. For all official preference shall be to the faithist. This was the 44th divine law. So this verse is basically saying that the all highest places are for those who have faith in the Creator. If you don't have faith in the Creator, you will be subjected to the first and second and the earth, and no higher than that. That's why all the false gods, they fall from the second heaven. Now, verse 3, the Diva decreed it of the same spirit, who not being a faithist, his education shall not run to the Lordhead, nor to the Godhead. He shall not be a column in the Father's building, nor of the arches stones, nor of the arched stones of the great strength, but he shall stand as a plain brick in the wall. Verse 4, the diva said, I am not created God to merely serve my time, and there an end. I am to look far ahead as to who shall be lords and gods over the earth and atmosphere. Verse 5, the diva propounded, what then shall be the course of a spirit who was not a faithist? And this was made the 46th divine law. He shall be delivered to the Asaphs, which are angels that receive the newborn spirits, or mortals who have just crossed over, who shall enter him in the nurses as an Isaean, meaning newborn spirit, where he shall remain 6 years, learning the elementary powers and expressions. Verse 6, the diva decreed it, the 47th divine law. The same spirit shall then be apprenticed in manufacturing and general labor, where he shall serve 12 years unless previously instructed in these things while immortal. So it's showing you if you had certain talents while on earth, like carpentry or electrician, these same talents are parallel in the spirit world. Now, verse 7, the diva decreed it, the 48th divine law. He shall now enter school and learn surveying and measuring without instruments, and determining the kind of emanations that rise up from the earth, their altitude and density, and he shall learn exploration and enumeration in both corpor and spirit, the building of podomizers, octivanes, which are spacecrafts, the constructing of arrowships, and all other vessels used in the heavens to carry things from place to place, and he shall serve 30 years in these things. So here again is showing you that in this book, in the OAHSPE, is showing you that the angels build the spacecrafts. No different than we on earth build airplanes. See the parallel? See how simple that is to comprehend? But the Bible readers make this so far out and complicated, like it's just that hard to understand. Now, verse 8, the diva decreed it, the 49th divine law. He shall now be promoted to restoring, nursing, and caring for the drugers, which are spirits of darkness, who are being rescued by the captains, the generals, and lords, in which service he shall be for 30 years. But in both the 48th and the 49th divine laws, it was afterward decreed, whatsoever service he did in mortal life, in these respects, shall stand to his credit twofold in spirit. Verse 9, the diva decreed it, if he now acknowledge and practice faith in the Great Spirit, he shall be promoted to the college of creation, and taught to create light and darkness. After this, he shall be taught to sargos, or to create flowers and trees and clothes, and to take elementary lessons in music and expression, in which branches he shall serve 50 years, and then he shall be entitled to examination. And if he can withstand the third grade of light, he shall be ranked bridegroom of Om. This was the 50th divine law. The 51st thus provideth. Verse 10, if he doth not yet comprehend faith in the all-person, he shall be granted freedom to all the places where he hath served, and he shall be emancipated from all lords and gods, and from all labor and education, and honorably discharged to pursue whatsoever he desires in any place in heaven or earth. Nor shall the lords nor gods take more notice of him than due respect and honor. So if he doesn't acknowledge the Creator at this point, he will be discharged from his duties, and that will be his limitation. Now, verse 11, whereupon the diva, son of all light, spoke, saying, this shall also be part and parcel of the divine law, which is to say, of the later class rise the false gods and false lords, that often set up kingdoms of their own in atmospheria. They shall not rise above the second resurrection. As I was stating earlier, those who do not profess the Creator shall not rise higher than the second heaven. That's their limitation. Those who profess the Creator, they will progress into the third resurrection. Now, verse 12, the voice of Jehovah came to God, saying, you see that? The voice of Jehovah came to God. You will not see that in the Bible, because they got God classified as Jehovah. But here in OAHSPE, it's showing you that the voice of Jehovah came to God, showing you that there's two separate entities, that Jehovah is above the gods. You will never see this in your Bible nor your Quran. Now, again, verse 12, the voice of Jehovah came to God, saying, without the disbeliever in spirits, mortals could not find courage to smite serpents. Without false gods and false lords, the lowest drudged spirits of darkness would never be put to work. They who cannot be risen by persuasion may be aroused by less scrupulous masters who make slaves of them. And this covers the primary education of the second heaven, showing you again the depths and magnitude and intelligence that angels in the second heaven are learning and have mastered. And the second heaven is the limitations for those angels who do not profess the Creator. And with that, I'd like to say peace and blessings and catch you on the next series called Decoding the Bible with OAHSPE. Shalom.